Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to episode 17. This is the intro for it. And I'm Sean Cudahy, your host. Okay, sorry, I will never introduce an episode like that again. But yes, episode 17 is here. And in this episode, I sit down with a recovery coach, Abby Clark. And I sit down with my good friend, who is actually coached by Abby, Matthew Oliver. And we have a nice conversation about Recovery Coach, what it can do for you, how it can help, where you can get information about it. And there's so many different sources, so many different ways that you can be helped by a Recovery Coach. So that's what this episode is about. But before we get to that, I would like to give a little shout out to Paul Oliver, to Shara Cullinan, and my wonderful sister Megan Cudahy, who have all signed up for Patreon. And they are all three of them are giving to Room 9 podcasts on a monthly basis. So that is very badass, and I'm so grateful, thankful, and humbled for their generosity. And also a shout out to Natalie Pelnett for giving us a donation of $20 on our website. And if any of you guys are feeling led to also do that, I would like to encourage you to do so. We have a lot of things that cost money here, more than you would ever think for a podcast. So we have our website fees, RSS fees, domain fees, equipment costs money. This wonderful laptop that I have that has been such a blessing to me is getting slower and slower and in rougher shape every day. So that is probably the next purchase that is being saved up for Room 9. I am in the process of creating a page on the website that allows me to post balances and spending and money received, money spent, and receipts. I think I'm going to try to get receipts up there as well, so that can be watched and looked over. I also want to mention this because I understand reluctancy to give a person in recovery money. So I fixed that problem so that I have accountability, so that I alone cannot access the money. I need a reason for it, and I am supervised with it. If you go on our website and go to Letter to a Donor, click on it, read that, but there's an email address for the wonderful woman, Christine Glavy, who is in charge of the money. So that goes right to her account directly, whether you do a one-time donation, whether you do Patreon, both of those things go to her account, and she is in charge of it. So you can actually email her and get in touch with her and many other things. So if you are feeling led to do that, please do so. room9podcast.com/support. That'll take you to our page and your option to do a one-time donation. There's an option to sign up for Patreon to give monthly. If you give monthly, you do get some things back, whether it's social media shout outs, or if you give enough, you can pick a topic. You get stickers, Room 9 podcast stickers, and all sorts of goodies. So please do that. But without further ado, episode 17 is right here, right now. Enjoy it. This was a fun episode. We had a great time doing it. And I will talk to you guys later. All right. Well, Room 9 podcast is happening right now. Ladies and gentlemen, and gentlemen,
we're in it.
Abby is here.
Hi.
Recovery coach.
Yeah. From Horizon.
From Horizons. I forgot we're allowed to say that. Yeah. We are allowed to say from
We're allowed
Horizon
to say that.
Matthew is here.
Ostrander. Let's be clear on the last
Ostrander. Name. That is a fantastic last name, by the way.
Yeah, it's funny that I utilized that, and then at Stevenson Street, Oxford House, everyone calls me Jameis because of my Facebook account being Jameis Winston.
Forgot about
That's a long story that we don't need to go into right now.
No. I feel like that's probably an inappropriate story.
But all of a sudden, I have like two random aliases. So, and that's in recovery. That wasn't in addiction. Everyone called me by my government name.
I just panicked for a second because I was like, oh my gosh, what's your last name?
Have I been saying his last name wrong the whole time?
Actually, Ostrander.
So we are gathering here today. I don't even know what we're gathering here for. I just wanted Abby on to get some a point of view from the recovery coach scenery.
Yeah.
I think you are the... I'll edit that little choking on my phlegm out. Usually when I say I'm going to edit something out, I don't.
You never do, because I literally said in one episode, you're going to edit that out, right? And then you're like, yeah. And then I was like, and also edit me asking you to edit.
Yeah, and I left that
all
in.
of it is in,
I left
in
it
the
in
episode.
Because I like giving that vibe off. You know, we're a little more authentic than that.
This is real.
Anywho.
Oh boy, pressure's
I was
on.
going to ask you what the theme of this episode
to
is.
keep it on more of a conversation level and keep that vibe going, I don't like to come in over prepared. Now I'm going to do an episode with a doctor. I'm going to be a little more prepared for that.
I would hope so.
Or if I do like the Avi Israel episode. But I mean, my biggest compliment I got on this podcast was somebody said, I felt like I was having coffee with you guys.
Right.
And that's what I want, because so many podcasts are totally like, all right, so on October 24th,
right.
you did this. Tell me about that.
Yeah.
And that's so annoying. Nobody wants to listen to that all the time. So I want to keep that good vibe going.
Right.
But I guess the main point is to kind of get Abby's point of view on, the recovery coach position.
Yeah.
Kind of what you go through, what you do, how you do it, why you do it, how you got involved with it, all those things.
There's so many questions.
Yeah, let's start with that one, though. Like, why you do it and how you got involved. That'd be great.
That's a good one to start with because I'm super comfortable with that one. So recovery coaching kind of fell into my lap. I was hired through Horizon to work down at the courts program as a case manager. And so that program eventually kind of ended. And I didn't really know where I was going within Horizon. So I went to the vocational department, and then recovery coaching had become something that Horizon was doing. And there was only one recovery coach. And so it grew, I think, into like 3 or 4 recovery coaches. And the one person who started recovery coaching with Horizon ended up leaving to kind of travel and go do her own thing. And she had said, why don't you apply? And I was like, no, I'm really comfortable where I am right now. This is pretty secure. I know what I'm doing. She's like, when you were at the courts, you were essentially doing recovery coaching.
Is that kind of what your involvement was?
And
like
so,
working with addicts and stuff?
It was mental health court, but dual diagnosis. The more I told her what I did there, she was like, that is recovery coaching. Like, you are a recovery coach and you don't even know that you are. You didn't even know what this was, and it was something that you're doing. I kind of thought about it a lot, and I was like, man, I really like being comfortable, though. Like, I like knowing I'm going to come into work. I know my job. I know what I'm doing. And now I'm kind of like thrown into something that is out of what my career comfort zone is, if that makes any sense. So I interviewed, and I got the job, and it was just like all of my fears of not knowing what this was or not knowing what to do just totally dissipated, because I can just be me. This is just who I am. This is what I'm super comfortable doing. And I wouldn't have ever given it a try if someone hadn't really like pushed me to do that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I absolutely love the idea of how we get super comfortable in something.
And then you just don't want to
you don't want to do anything else.
Yes.
But the only way to change and grow and do things that you love to do is to go into that like unknown, uncomfort, chaotic thing.
That's the irony of it too, is that whole time that you're sitting there being comfortable and loving it, at the same time you've got like these thoughts occasionally of I would really like to be better or do better. How do I grow? But you're kind of like this internal battle of like comfort and then following your dream or whatever it is.
Right. Because at that point, I think it was more grant focused than sustainable. Like income. It wasn't like certified at that point.
Okay.
Like I became certified through like what New York State does, but that was about a year and a half ago. So at that point, it was kind of like I'm leaving something that is more guaranteed, where now if somehow this doesn't pan out, if like recovery coaching isn't recognized, then what happens?
So this was before New York State even had any sort of program set up, or?
It was a program. I don't know all the details of it because I wasn't really involved in any of that. That kind of was all going on way before I came on board. But I think they were still kind of in that process of showing that recovery coaching works. So it's really cool to have been a part of kind of some of those earlier stages of it, and now seeing like what it's grown into and how much it's like throughout New York State and how much Western New York is doing something with it. It's so awesome. Like there's just so many recovery coaches like all over the place. So even if I'm talking to someone and they're like, oh, I have to go back to Rochester, or I have to go to Jamestown, like there's options to get a recovery coach in those places. So it's not just here.
Yeah, because it's pretty big now.
Yes.
From what I can tell. And I'm assuming it goes farther than New York State.
Yeah.
I have to assume each state probably has their...
Each state, I think they have their own thing.
Program going on.
But there was a recovery conference in Albany I went to. I think it was in like August. And just to see what's happening like state level, it's something that is like so backed. So many people believe in it. There's so much that they're like thinking of for alternative programs, kind of bridging what that gap looks like. So it's really exciting to see where we're going to move in the future.
Yeah, that's cool because actually this morning I was looking at a website that was, I don't know what it was, but it was just talking about like being on an MAT regimen. And one of the things it specifically mentioned outside of like actually taking the medication as prescribed was support groups and one-on-one counseling, and then also peer support, which is what recovery coach would fall under, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, I would assume. I mean, mine has helped me. I've gone through 2 because my original recovery coach got a new job, which I was pretty bummed out about.
That happened to me too.
But that's right.
Did you have Tara?
Yeah.
Oh, she was great.
Yeah, she was awesome.
However, Abby, I was just going to say this. Abby had some great...
Tara was so much better than the recovery coach.
No, I did not say that. Tara was great.
I have to tell her to listen to this.
However, and you can ask Tara, I was like really skeptical about who like was going to replace her because she did an amazing job of like getting me into like Access VR and getting me into school, and like we had this great vibe or whatever, which I think we do as well, Abby, but it's not like I was trying to say you're a bad recovery coach. But no, you did come in and it's been great.
This is awkward.
Let's just get off this point now.
Those transitions, though, just to say, are so, like, they're so hard for everybody because I'm sitting on the other end of it going, oh my gosh, like, I don't know, like every single recovery coach is so different. We have different things to offer. And like, what if I come in and you're just like, I'm not feeling
Screw
this.
that.
Right.
Like we kind of have like our own quirks and our own ways of doing things and the ways of like having conversations. So as much as like you're sitting over there going, I don't really know.
I mean,
I'm sitting over here doing the exact same thing. I'm like, oh gosh, this is tough. Like you're just coming in. Someone already has like an idea of what this is. And now the way I do things might just be totally different and not something you're thrilled about.
Again, it goes back to the unknown thing.
Yeah.
Like you're going into this uncomfortable situation and how are you going to, handle it and deal with it?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I find like having my recovery coach, it's just, even if it's meeting once a week just to talk and have coffee, it's a thing that helps me continuously schedule. All right, I have this person I can discuss my recovery with and not have to worry about it. So it's a consistent, even just, hey, I'm going to specifically talk about my recovery with this person.
It's like an extra meeting during the week almost. And I consider it, I don't know, I have a sponsor, but I think as far as recovery coach goes, I think I get more out of the recovery coaching than sponsorship.
Yeah, I tried the sponsor thing for a little bit. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I hate calling every day. That's so awkward, A. And B, I'm usually just like, everything's cool. I don't know you that well, so I'm not going to really open up.
And then if you tell them everything's cool, they don't believe you anyway.
Right. Then they...
Even if everything is cool. Oh, no, it's not.
There's no way.
No, it's
anyway,
not.
So yeah, recovery coach is fantastic.
It is. I do enjoy it.
It's nice just because we don't have too many goals that we come into each appointment or meeting with. We're just like, what's going on? Lay it all out there, whatever you want to talk about. So we don't have all of that. Like, we have to get this done. We have to do this. It's just a little bit more like free and organic conversation just about life as it's happening.
Yeah, and I know it's not necessarily a hindrance with like a counselor at Horizon, but it definitely is a distraction to have because they have to keep notes, right? I get that. But when
they put you on a program and
so they have to fill out the goals and all that and monthly, and that's fine. It's just when the last like 5 or 10 minutes of the meeting or whatever of a 45-minute session is them typing on the computer, I'm kind of checked out. Like I'm already moving into my next whatever it is on my schedule. So yeah, to like not have really anything like that we have to sit there, and then also not having like, okay, you have 45 minutes and in 10 minutes I have the next person, so you really got to move on. I know sometimes we've had sessions that have gone like an hour and a half, sometimes they're 50 minutes. Like it's just whatever feels right for that day. So that's really cool.
I think the best thing about it, and probably the most important thing about it, is if, say I relapsed, I can go to my recovery coach without any worries about my probation officer getting kicked out of outpay, whatever it is. I can go to that person and be like, hey, and maybe nip it in the bud before it grows into something bigger, which I think is important. A lot of people have a lot of reservations going to, say, even their counselor at Horizon Village or wherever your outpatient is, Best Self, whatever it is, and saying, hey, I slipped up the other day, I put myself in a stupid position, I screwed up, and I did this. And I think that's an awesome thing to have because I know somebody who I'm pretty close to who did relapse, and I told him, you got to put it out there, man. Like, you got to go talk to, whoever it is, and he told his recovery coach and everything else. And I think that's super important to do that because that's when once you get away with it and you don't tell anybody, it just grows bigger and bigger. So I think that's super important to have that.
So do you mind if we go into that a little bit? Like, let's say just for example, I come to you and I'm like, hey, listen, last weekend I slipped up and it was a one-time thing. Like, how do you handle that?
So we would have that conversation, like what was going on, how, like, what are the reservations, what are the barriers at this point, how do we kind of prevent this from happening again, and then check where you're at with telling your counselor or going someplace further than what you're telling me. And I don't have to go and tell that to anybody else if it continues, or if you say, yeah, I'm going to talk to my counselor about that, and then you come back and you're like, no, I didn't, and I've been using more. Then we get to this point where we're like, well, we got to do something because what we're trying to do, the plan that we're coming up with, doesn't seem to be working.
Right.
But it's really nice to be able to go into something where you can say, okay, I lapsed, I did tell somebody, came up with this plan. Maybe I've been increasing self-help. I've been going to more like refuge recovery, or I've been increasing sober supports in these areas. And then it's looked at like kind of like from the legal standpoint. Maybe I've acknowledged it. I'm doing something about it. I'm working what my program is going to be. And that's helpful to me. So it kind of helps people to see like you are putting forth a lot of effort into what your recovery is. And it's not just saying, okay, well, this happened. I haven't done anything. I didn't tell anybody. We're talking about it. We're holding you accountable. We're coming up with something that maybe you haven't tried before that might work this time around. And then when you do have that conversation with your counselor or anyone in like the legal system, they can kind of see that you are taking it seriously. You are trying to put forth more effort into your recovery than maybe you were, if that makes any sense.
So, no, it does. So basically, if somebody comes in is just completely stagnant, doesn't do anything, pretty much, well, even if they don't admit it, if somebody isn't putting an effort forward, they're probably still using. And then that's when it can, you go to somebody and then kind of get it under control, or at least let it be known to other people. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Especially if it just continues. It's like, we don't want to have to like go and just say like, hey, we're going to go like kind of like rat you out or tell this story of yours. But your safety is also like completely our priority. Yeah. So I would rather, if it gets to that point, I would rather you be mad at me for a little bit, but ultimately be getting back on track. Yeah. And be safe and alive.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
realistically,
at the end of the day, I kind of look at it from that standpoint. Like if we're talking about what we're doing with this plan, but none of that is happening, and I'm really worried about you, then that kind of like takes priority
over anything else,
because I want to be able to meet with you next week.
Right.
And I don't know that I'm going to be able to if we keep going this way. Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, that would take a lot of pressure off, too, because when I'm sitting there in the office with my counselor or I'm with the doctor, that's to me, like, kind of an all-or-nothing type situation. Like, either I tell her or I don't. And if I don't, I'm now, throughout the session, not lying, but, like, passively, you know what I mean? Like, withholding truth. So to come to you, I could even, I guess, and I don't know, it would depend on the situation, but it takes a lot of pressure off of me because I could just say, hey, do you think that you could bring this up with my counselor?
Yeah, absolutely.
If I needed it, right? So if we're like, okay, we develop a plan, and then I'm like, you know what, I'm still nervous about it, or I still have like whatever, I think that you could explain it better, then I can just throw that on you, which takes the burden off me, and that might make it easier for me to start on that new plan that we develop.
Yeah. I mean, there's been times where it's like, okay, how can I support you in talking about this with your counselor? Would it be best if I came to a session and was physically there supporting you during this conversation? Do you want to call them together? Do you want to send an email right now and say, hey, kind of we're talking today, maybe they want to, bring this up. Could you ask about this?
Right.
And I don't even have to go into the details, but then that counselor knows that next session to ask about this, and it holds you accountable, but still gives you your room to tell your story. So there's so many different ways that we can support, which is really like the beauty of recovery coaching, because across the board, we can really support in endless possibilities.
Cool.
Yeah, which that's awesome to be able to have that.
Another thing too that I think comes up with the recovery coach role, and I heard this a lot in the Village specifically, was people who were skeptical on some of the recovery coaches, whether they have experience as an addict or they're not in recovery. I don't know if you want to go into that a little bit.
I'm smiling right now because I hear that all the time.
Right.
The lack of experience or...
Yeah.
And you hear that about counselors too, not just
right.
recovery
Not
coaches.
just, it's just kind of...
Oh, you hear it everywhere in addiction, yeah.
Yeah, kind of across the board.
Which I don't, before you elaborate on that, I hate it in general, because for me to learn something from anybody, now granted, there's totally set of different things I can learn from somebody who has been an addict, who has been clean for 15 years, who's gone through it, who does all those things. But there's also this person over here who maybe has never been an addict. To me, the education is just as important for me working on myself as an individual in my recovery as somebody with experience. Like, I want to know the neuroscience behind it. I want to know about cognitive behavioral therapy. I want to know about dialectical behavior therapy. I want to know about all these different things so I can apply them through the process of elimination of what's going to help me the most.
Right. And to be honest, somebody who is an addict and has spent like the last decade of their life doing drugs probably didn't spend a good amount of time in grad school learning those therapies.
No. And those are equally as important for me. So when people get off and they just close down because somebody has not been an addict, that drives me nuts.
I mean, with recovery coaching, so not all recovery coaches are in recovery. So what I typically say is it's kind of up to each coach to share what their story is, what has kind of brought them to recovery coaching and why this is a passion. But usually there's something, if it's not themselves who have struggled with addiction and are in recovery now, maybe like a close family member, a friend, somehow addiction and recovery has affected their life in some way. I know, like for myself, like I'm in recovery from using cocaine for several years, and I don't even think we've really gotten into so much of what my story has been. But ultimately, like what led me to recovery coaching I don't even think it was what my story was for a while. It was that I was able to really just be myself in a position and kind of like embrace like what my quirks are, what my anxieties are, and just share kind of like what that real connection is. And just, I am completely here walking this journey with you. And at the end of the day, that connection makes such a difference to have that. You're not alone. I'm not alone. We're walking this. I'm coming from this place of understanding, and I'm completely here supporting you. And it's really like an honor to be able to walk that journey. It sounds super cheesy, but the way that like I look at it, you're letting me into what your life is right now, what your stressors are, what your struggles are. We're celebrating like the wins and the accomplishments and all of the great things. That's like a privilege to be a part of. And it's kind of knowing like that I've gotten to be a part of that. I've gotten to see like all of this growth happen, and knowing that at the end of like what Horizon's journey is that like when Horizon is gone, graduated from that, you've completed that recovery is still really sustainable and it's enjoyable and it's something that you want to keep doing. It's really cool to be able to be a part of what that looks like. And you don't have to be in recovery to have those same feelings too. So for people who are skeptical of that, if you look at it that way, it kind of ease like, okay, they might not get exactly what this means, but this person is 100% committed to helping me get to a really good place in my recovery.
Which is huge.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely is huge. If somebody generally wants to help an individual, whether they have experience in the addiction or not, it is awesome to be able to have that person there for you. And really, I would say anybody who is totally against that is probably a very close-minded individual.
Sure, yeah.
I have to say, and isn't going to get anything out of anything anyway.
Right. I think, too, the other thing is somebody, like, reaching out for help in recovery is difficult, obviously. So it's easy to recognize somebody who's genuine about wanting to help you. That's what I've noticed personally, because I have, like, I wouldn't say like I have this huge complex against letting people in or asking for help. I think that it would be more of an asking for help type complex, just based on like, I don't know, whatever the psychology is that's going on in the back of my mind all the time.
Pride.
Right. I guess we could sum it up in that way.
Pretty much.
So to have somebody, whether they're previously an addict or in recovery or not, I can tell if they really want to help. And those are the people that I'm going to open up to. And that's what happened with me and Tara. We clicked really quickly, and it was just like the right time, right place kind of thing. And then even with me and you, Abby, I think we clicked pretty quickly too. And you mentioned that we hadn't really gone over like your story, which I kind of realized like maybe I talk way too much in our session.
No.
It's all about me.
Not at all. I mean, that just comes up, I think, through what conversation is.
Right.
Where I can honestly say it doesn't always even come up because I don't want to make it about me. So if I can kind of like relate to something that you're saying, it might not even be about what addiction looked like for me or what recovery looks like for me. Mm-hmm. It might be about something like relationship, transitions, change. Mm-hmm. So there's so many other ways that we can relate that doesn't even have to pertain to what my recovery journey has looked like. And I think that we've had a lot of like good conversations about so many different things, not even related to like what that is to me.
Sure.
So I think that connection is obviously the number one priority. To have that, to be able to make somebody feel comfortable enough to be open and vulnerable.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to think how old I was when I realized like I'm just done not talking about shit. Like, I'm just going to be completely open. Sometimes that freaks people out. Sometimes maybe I do it too much, but I'm just like, yeah, this is how I'm feeling. This is what I'm doing. And really, I think in the middle of my addiction is where I just didn't ever want to show. I kind of closed back up and didn't want to show that weakness of, I cannot control this at all.
Yeah.
Like, I'm totally like ass whooped by this addiction and I cannot control it. But I mean, that's the number one thing, getting to that point of, all right, I'm comfortable enough with you where now I can tell you about all these things and all these, whatever that may be.
Yeah, and I think this time around in recovery for me, and not like I've been around 17 times, but it's probably like the third attempt, I would say, like the third serious attempt. This is the only time that I really let my parents in. So that just kind of shows like how much of a personal issue this is. Like, there's a lot of people in my life that know that I'm in recovery or know that I struggled with addiction in the past, but I don't talk about it a lot with a lot of people. Like, I don't really get into depth with it a lot. Even with other like addicts, I realize now that like in the rooms, I'm pretty closed as well. If I'm there sharing, I rarely share unless there's something, and now that I'm thinking about it, it's usually something good that I want to share. It's almost never that I am going to put out there like I'm struggling and I wanted to use this weekend or something like that. Like, you'd have to be really, I'd have to trust you very deeply to say I did this and I don't think that I should have.
Yeah, I think the only the reasons why I share in meetings because nobody's talking and the silence drives me nuts.
Yeah, that's a thing.
But I mean, obviously, with what I'm doing, I mean, somebody in China right now can listen to how my recovery is going and what I've gone through and what I've done. So, like, that trips me out thinking about that.
It is wild. The other day, weren't you like, oh, there's someone in Australia listening right now?
I was going to say, I was looking at the Google Analytics a few weeks ago, and it said, like, one person. But still, it's crazy to think in Australia listened to a podcast, which I'm like, oh, that's so weird.
It is.
Like, across the world.
Wow.
Totally different continent. And they heard about my recovery and my story, which I think is awesome.
It is.
But this is the number one thing for me. Working literally every day, I put at least the minimum of 4 hours into this.
Right.
And doing that is continuously keeping my recovery fresh and reminding me, all right, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm working on. This is where I've come from. And this is where I want to go.
And that's crazy because 4 hours a day doesn't seem like a lot as far as like work, but you're doing 7 hours or 7 days a week. Mm-hmm. And 4 hours, I think, for you is like a rest day.
Yeah, that's pretty low. Yeah. If I count, like, I've learned to count, like, because I hate doing social media stuff, but I've learned to count that. Listen, this is work for the bot. When you are commenting and interacting with people and having the Room 9 podcast name out there, that's work for the podcast. Like, I have to do this stuff. So sometimes it doesn't feel like it and I have to remind myself, but it is. It's a continuous reminder of, all right, I got to keep my recovery going. And that goes back to having kind of swing it and relate it to recovery coaching. As far as keeping your recovery in the forefront, I think meeting with somebody once a week and talking just, all right, we're going to talk about your recovery, what's going on, is huge. Because everybody that I've heard that relapsed from the beginning, since the moment I got out of jail, doing H&Is and rehabs and stuff like that, and just hearing people talk, everybody who relapsed just thought they had it pretty much. All right, I got this now. I don't need to work on this. I don't need to go to self-help anymore. I don't need to, talk about my recovery anymore. I got this. I'm not worried. And next thing you know, they're right back where they started.
Yeah, and for me, my last relapse came from not doing any of that in the first place. So I was literally only relying on going to outpatient at first, which was, it's good that the way outpatient starts like 3 days a week. That's great. But eventually it got to the point where I was just in like a maintenance group and I went once a month and that was all I was doing. And I had eliminated all my bad old friends, not bad, but just old friends who were using associates, as we call them.
Using
And
associates.
I eliminated them, yeah, but I didn't like add good friends in. So I didn't have any network. I wasn't open with my parents. Who I was with at the time was not a sober person, so they weren't a sober support, obviously. So I was really isolated within recovery, and I know that's what brought me back out, because I got to a point where I wasn't even doing a once a month group. I was just seeing a doctor for 15 minutes a month. And that's not really recovery. That's just like maintenance of not getting sick. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Not thinking, and I did think that I had it. Like I was like, yeah, this is my life now. Like I'm just gonna do 15 minutes a month with a doctor until I'm off of the Suboxone, and then I'm never gonna talk or think about being in recovery. And I didn't even consider it that at the time. I mean, this was a couple of years ago, but still, like opioid epidemic had kind of come to the forefront already. But I didn't think of myself as being in recovery. I was like cured was my mindset. You know what I mean? Like I'm not that anymore. I used to be an addict. Now I'm a normal person.
I'm back to normal.
Right.
Right. You're like, okay, I've gotten rid of these people. I've done this. I completed. So now I only go 15 minutes a month. So I'm good.
Right.
That's kind of like, so like where recovery coaching can step into is like when you're done with outpatient, we don't end right away.
Good.
We can kind of continue for a couple months, making sure that, you know, what you were doing when you were going to outpatient, you're still doing those things. So you're still doing the meetings that are working, those sober supports, spirituality, whatever that is looking like for you, we're still part of that.
Yeah.
So that you can have that accountability and say like, okay, maybe I thought I had it and maybe I don't. So what do we need to do different so that this can last long term?
Does Horizon like have a limit when you graduate outpatient? How long could Matt stay with you for like 2-3 years after he graduates outpatient, or how do they go about doing that?
It's usually like a couple months, a few months. But I mean,
And then you guys break up.
Then we just part ways.
This was always short term. We knew what we were getting into. But theoretically,
but you can still check in.
I was
like,
going to say,
there's still folks that we've ended the recovery coaching relationship, but I still know how they're doing.
Yeah.
And they'll still send me a text saying, hey, just wanted to let you know, like, I've been clean for 2 years now. Things are going great. Just like a whole like snapshot update. Or
cool.
Sometimes someone's, you know, giving me a call and they're like, hey, no, we're not together anymore, but I think I really need to get back in. Can you help me? It's like, absolutely.
oh yeah, that is a great.
So
You're right. That's a great like door to have there, and a great like option to have in mind. Mm-hmm. This person has connections in Horizon. If I ever do relapse or have a lapse, you'd probably be one of the first people that I would talk to. Really, even if it was a couple years out. Mm-hmm. Thinking forward to it, that would make perfect sense.
yeah.
Ultimately, we could develop like a friendship, or no? Is that like taboo?
I think that's more taboo, but if you are like at meetings and you see each other,
Right.
depending on what each recovery coach does, you know,
Makes
I guess
sense.
you could see each other kind of in those settings. If you run into each other there,
Yeah, I've run into a counselor from Terrace House once or twice out at meetings. That was pretty cool.
But you have to go up to them, right? They can't come up to you?
Yeah,
Is that how it goes?
Like that was how it was at Jacasa. I assume it's the same way at Horizon. Like my counselor at Jacasa was a great guy, and I would see him pretty regularly. But it was actually pretty convenient because at first I was like, well, that's stupid. I don't care if people see me talking to you. But then there were situations that came up, like in Walmart while I'm at work with my boss. Like that's a bad time. You know what I mean? So I would just kind of give him a wave, and he would or wouldn't acknowledge it, depending. But yeah, I think that's a good policy anyway, because sometimes, I don't necessarily want to explain myself.
Yeah.
Because he was an old dude. Like, I'm not buddies with an old dude. You know what I mean? It's my grandpa's friend.
Yeah, I never cared about. I get it, but I mean,
that came up the other day, actually. We were talking about people. There's like two schools of people in recovery. People who are like loud and proud, and then people who are like closeted almost. Not closeted, but like...
I like to use the word ashamed. They're ashamed of it.
Let's just, we'll call it what it is. Pride, shame. Let's not beat around the bush.
I don't know if I'd say I'm loud and proud.
I think I would say that.
I'm loud and proud.
I mean, it's a figure of speech. You're not literally loud, but you're.
I was more focused on like the proud thing. I don't think I'm necessarily proud.
Yeah, but so if I'm ashamed of it, the opposite
Obviously,
of that
you're
is
not really
you
ashamed
being,
of it. That's why we laughed after I said
no,
ashamed.
but I think we're on a good path here because there are people who are ashamed of it, even if I'm not.
I agree.
Right?
Yeah.
So the opposite of that, like the polar opposite, would be pride, right?
Yes.
So on both ends, both ends, you have pride over here and then shame over here. I think everybody's somewhere in between that. And I think I'm more towards the like still a little bit embarrassed that I wasted a decade of my life and you've gotten past that. And maybe it's a journey of getting to being past that shame, or maybe it's just that's where you are as a human being and that's just fits your personality. Because like when we met at the Village, you're just a very outgoing person naturally. So I think for you to be open with somebody is a lot easier.
It's easier, yeah.
Where I'm outgoing once I know somebody, but I'm not going to approach somebody out of the blue unless you're like at Tim Hortons serving me coffee or whatever. Like just a random stranger. I'm not the person to go up and start a friendship with somebody on the bus, you know?
I was at the ball with Andy and Patrick and a couple of buddies of mine, and we were walking through there. I told Andy, I was like, I hate them all. You have a half hour to get your girlfriend a Valentine's gift, and I'm leaving. I will leave. I swear to God, I'll leave you here. And we're walking through Macy's or whatever, and this lady's like, "Sir, can I?" She's trying to sell me something. I was like,
my goodness!
And I yelled pretty much like, "No thanks, lady. I'm a heroin addict, so I really can't afford anything in this store." And just kept walking.
That's awesome. That's actually a great way to like get rid of people you don't want to talk about.
Like I'm a heroin addict. I can't afford any of this stuff. Don't
like
even
those
bother.
people in Walmart who are like trying to sell you like better like
the phone
cable service or phones. Yeah, like any of those people that approach you, like, sorry, I'm really into heroin.
Make some people uncomfortable real quick. They'll stop.
Just stop talking. Yeah. You will shut them up very quickly.
That's funny.
I guess going back on topic of being a recovery coach.
Right. Let's get back to that. Kind of got on a
all
tangent.
Started a half hour ago, and we got through that one question of how you got started.
We did
a recovery coach.
Well,
no, we moved on to very important topics. We did.
See, this is just a conversation, Sean.
And that's what I like. See?
Yeah.
And this is how I like it to go. It's a beautiful
This is
thing.
much better than having to like have like scripted
Yeah,
question and answer
It's
things,
hard.
because that was making me nervous too.
Yeah, that's not how we do it at
So-
Room 9, Abby.
No.
We're very
In
chill.
room 9
I didn't
now.
think so, but then I wasn't 100% sure what was going to happen.
No, I like it very. All right, we're having coffee. What you kind of ice cap and coffee
I'm out.
and Timbits.
But
Me
that's
too.
fine.
I need a servant.
Ring
Bar
the bell.
wench.
Garçon. More coffee.
Croissant means boy.
All right, so
Moving on.
recovery coaching. Do you have anything that you want to like specifically point out that you like really kind of had in mind?
I mean, I guess I really didn't. But now, since we were talking about like once time at Horizon ends, I would like to just throw it out there. Don't delete our phone numbers out of your phone once like we've done.
Yeah.
Like we've completed what that linkage looks like. Like, okay, this is kind of where we formally part ways. You know what I mean? Like we're not going to be meeting from here on out, but like don't delete our number because we still want to hear like how things are going, or if things do shift down the road.
Yeah.
It's a good number to still
have.
Either way,
I'm
it's good
throwing that
for
one out there.
like good for both parties, really, just because it's a resource for me, and then for you, it's good to hear that your work is having an impact. When I text you and I'm like, "It's 2 years," or "It's been 22 years. We're old now," you know, whatever it is.
22 years later, still doing good.
Hello.
No, but it is important. Yeah, I think to continue that contact at least of. I mean, I know for a lot of people who are involved in my life would appreciate hearing from me to know that I'm doing well.
Yeah.
I'm doing good.
Yeah, because we do form kind of like a, we're meeting out for coffee, or we're going to check out a meeting together, or going to do yoga. Like we like develop like a closer bond. And so then when we do have to kind of part ways, like it is sad. Like, well, I still want to know how you're doing. I still want to know like different milestones come up and things are going on. Like just because we're not still like meeting every week doesn't mean that like I don't really
We can
care.
still be friends.
Just want to just send me a snapshot check-in.
Do it.
Unless you have like a really jealous girlfriend who's going through your phone and being like, "Who's Abby?"
Oh, you know about that.
Why am I? Me and
Oh,
actually,
my
so
gosh.
this is a funny shift. me and Tabitha talked about before I left the village, like, you're going to be naturally attracted to women who are super controlling, so stay away from them. Because there's gonna, like, I guess it's part of, like, codependency, where you have, like, this natural chemistry towards these people who are ultimately going to become bad for you, like, because you just fit into their preference, right? So for me, like, I just kind of fit into the preference of women who are, like, wanting to own my life for some reason. That might be an exaggeration, but yeah, so she was just like, do not, like, you're going to see that and you're going to feel a strong connection, but you have to ignore that and find somebody who's not that way and, like, slowly develop a connection, which ultimately will become stronger than that initial one with that person who's going to be bad for you.
That is huge.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a tangent there. We didn't need to talk about that.
Nobody likes to be with a controlling person.
Right, but yeah, you're right.
That's right.
I don't have anything to add to that.
No, you don't. I've learned my lesson with that with my ex-wife.
We
Terrible.
should introduce our exes, because they probably would be best of friends.
Oh my God, they absolutely would. They absolutely would.
Anyway, let's get off that topic.
Yes, before we get in trouble here.
We're gonna both be served.
We're going to be served. What am I being served? I'm already divorced.
Well, anyway.
That's right. Recovery. So, Abby, how does somebody go about if somebody's listening to this and actually wants a recovery coach? Is there a way? Now, does Horizon Village? I feel like they only do it with people who have come from the village, or could a random person come in and, hey, I want a recovery coach?
So you have to be linked with Horizon. If it's Horizon Village, if it's Horizon Outpatient, it doesn't really matter where you are within Horizon. You just got to be through Horizon. So because basically what we're doing is kind of like that extension of Outpatient. So we're not necessarily working on all of the same goals or talking about the same things, but we are kind of in that action phase of what you're talking about with your counselor. So it's like, okay, we've talked about wanting to get to doing some more community activities or linking up with more sober supports. And then we can kind of step in and say, okay, well, how do we make that happen? Like, let's get out there together. So, and it kind of makes it easier to kind of coordinate within Horizon too. That's really the one thing, is that you'd have to be with Horizon for this recovery coaching. But like Best Self has their recovery clubhouse, which is super awesome.
That's like coaches
you can just go there. Yeah, they have recovery coaches there, and you can just go there, and they have like, forget like the names of some of like the programs that they have, but it's like you can like have conversation and coffee or cooking classes or painting or
they do
just
a lot
like
of stuff
tons
there.
of stuff there. So if you want to have recovery coaching support, you're not with Horizon, I know Best Self has amazing
They're
resources.
Huge. Yeah,
Like, they're
and
really,
even
really great.
that little clubhouse they have guitars, bongos, couches, TVs. They have I think 6 computers set up.
Where is that located?
On Linwood.
In downtown? Mm-hmm. Because I think I went by it one time walking somewhere.
Yeah, it is. It's a nice place. I actually pretended to go there when I got clean on my own.
That's awesome.
I pretended like I walked in there, grabbed pamphlets and stuff. And
to give to your parents or
I made
whoever.
a notebook, which is sitting around here somewhere.
Oh, yeah, you told me about that. I still want to see that notebook.
Yeah, I have a notebook around here somewhere that I put Best Self stuff on. I put the calendar in there. I wrote stuff on papers, and I'd leave it laying around for people to see.
Okay.
Like I'd cover it up with a few things so it'd make it look like I'm not trying to have people see it.
That's hilarious.
Oh, yeah, it was a great move.
In between like lines of dope, you're writing in this Best Self.
Doing dope and then, writing my story. It's so terrible.
It's so elaborate, the extent that we go through in addiction, like the stories that we'll come up with, or like just the things that you do to like cover your tracks.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
And you think that you're doing so well at it, but ultimately you probably aren't doing that great.
Yeah, when you look back, you're like, how did anybody believe this? Nobody believed it.
Nobody did.
Although some of us are better at it than others, I will say that.
Of course.
Because being in an Oxford house, you come across a lot of people who are terrible at lying.
That's so dumb.
Why would you even think somebody would believe that?
Yeah. Yeah. They're not ready.
Oh, I drank cough medicine. Oh my gosh.
That's why I popped for meth.
Yes, that's why I popped for meth. How did I do that? Oh man.
So stupid.
Oh, you're an idiot.
I just gargled with mouthwash. It's got alcohol. Anyway.
Come on, Abby. What is like the best bull crap line you've ever been served?
I've had a lot of them.
I know you have some good ones.
There have been.
And please give their name and address as well.
I think the best one, and this wasn't even like when I was doing recovery coaching. This has kind of just been like throughout kind of
Your
different
experience.
encounters and time out there, was like testing positive for Coke because their boyfriend did Coke, and then
They did it.
I've heard that more than once, surprisingly. So maybe more people are catching on to that.
So I don't really know what it comes down to, but that one I was like, whoa, okay.
That's how it got in you, huh? Good.
That makes sense. Okay. That is awesome.
That was
I would never have thought of that, but it wouldn't apply for me.
It's just stupid.
It is dumb.
Yeah.
Mine, I would usually, so if I was going to be dirty and I knew it, I would come up with like a story that would like facilitate the excuse that I was going to use. So one time I knew I was going to be dirty for marijuana, and I was at Chicasa, and I was like, so yeah, we were hanging out this weekend in my friend's attic, and I mean, he smoked so much weed, but I didn't. I was just up there with them, and it was really hazy at one point, and I was coughing a lot. So then the test comes positive, I'll be like, it was the attic.
Son of a bitch.
I knew I shouldn't have been in that attic. It didn't work.
No, that's terrible.
Yeah.
All right,
a lot
Abby,
that goes
before
into
you get out of here, any final thoughts?
Just be open to what the options are. There's so many different pathways to what recovery can look like that, and I mean, with recovery coaching, like we don't push one specific thing. So like what worked for me just may not work for you. And that's totally cool.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to push something, okay, well, this worked for me. So like, you have to do this. You have to get this done. That's not really how that goes.
Like they do.
But
Like a sponsor would you?
be open to suggestions and options, and even just outside of recovery coaching, just try it. That's the beauty of like, I read this quote once, and I always like butcher all of the quotes that I try to like repeat. So I don't know why I continue trying to do this.
That's awesome.
Just like haven't learned my lesson. But it was like, if plan A doesn't work, there's however, how many letters are there in the alphabet?
26.
Okay, so there's like 25 other plans that you can do. And I saw that and I was like, oh, that's a really good point. Because I always think, okay, well, if this doesn't work, is that a failure?
Yeah.
You know, okay, well, if there's not plan A, then I'll try plan B. But like, I don't know what happens after that. So that kind of just put it into perspective for me that there are a lot of different plans that you can try, and none of them, if it doesn't work or you don't like it, none of that is failing. It's just learning.
Process of elimination. Yeah. And like on the other side of that, I feel it's awesome to take every suggestion people give you and try to apply it and see if it works or not.
Yeah, there's always something to learn, even if it isn't something that's working for you or you don't think that's going to help you like sustainable. You can always learn something from
Process
everything.
of elimination. Yeah. And just trying it all out.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming to the old
Sure.
Room 9 studios.
Thanks for having me.
This was pretty awesome.
It's been
This was fun. I was nervous, so I'm
No, it was good. It was
happy.
chill, isn't it?
Yeah,
It was
this
great.
was good.
Fun time.
All right. We are signing off, people. Thanks for listening. I love you guys. Later.
All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed the show. It is officially over now. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for your support, encouragement, and everything else you guys do for us here at Room 9. Again, shout out to Paul Oliver, Cheryl Cullinan, Megan Cudahy, Natalie Pelnett for helping us out financially. You guys are a blessing and very appreciative of your generosity. So thank you again for listening, guys. Thank you again for your support. Keep it up. Get on our Facebook page, Room 9 Podcast, Instagram, Twitter, at Room 9 Podcast. And I think that's it. What other social media stuff do we have? Tumblr, which I don't even know if anybody uses that. We are on there, though. And I think that's it. Yes. If you want to email us, room9podcast@gmail.com with any questions, comments, concerns, you can get on our website, sign up for our contact, or go to the contact page, sign up for our newsletter, sign up for our emails, sign up. You'll get notices when we do blogs, post new episodes, yada, yada, yada. Thank you very much. I will talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.